Okay, let's begin by writing our first lines of code on HTML. Remember, I said we need a code editor and we have a plain text editor, and for Windows operating system, there's this default Notepad that you can use to write code, and you can also use an IDE, and there are different type of IDE, but the one I would so much prefer to use is Visual Studio Code. I will in the description below. I'll put down the links to where you can get them downloaded. Um, this is where I downloaded my Visual Studio Code. You can click on download to get it. Same as Chrome browser. To display your contents, I use Chrome. But as a developer, you're expected to have more than one browser running on your system. The reason is being that if you have multiple browser running on your system, you'll be able to test and see how each website looks on different browser in order to determine how best you want it. So let's start with our plain text editor, and I'll start with an IDE. So let's create our first line of code. So I would use create my first tag, starting with the lower down sign, then an exclamation, then all in capital letter doc type, and then I say HTML. Now I've declared that this document I'm about to write is an HTML document, and let me zoom in so we can all see clearly. Let me zoom in. So, and I can come down here and say, okay, I want to start my HTML code from here. Now, please be advised, the very minute you create an opening tag in HTML, I will always advise you to put your closing start immediately in order for you not to forget. So I will come here and close this as well. Then I'll come in between here. I will write my head, opening tag, and the closing tag as well, head. Okay, for proper view, I would indent this so that it will have a proper structure, and I will come here and do body, and I will close the body. Now, if I save this by pressing Ctrl S or coming down to file, because it's my first time of saving, I can come to file and come to save or save as, because it's the first time, and decide to save this. Remember, I have to pick a location. Okay, I'll be picking this folder here, and in this folder you can see it's empty. So I can come here and save this with remember, at default every editor has a default extension. For a notepad, the default extension is .txt, but because it's the first one, so I'll say first .html or .htm. So this signifies that this should be an HTML document. So if you don't specify this, it will save as default.txt, which might not be readable by your browser. So I'll click on save. So if I am to locate my document, I'll come to my file explorer. This is the folder I save it. It's inside my own documents. You can save it anywhere of your choice, but this is where I prefer to save mine. And inside you will see first.html. So this is the folder file we just created. So if I open it by double clicking, to open in a browser for me, because Chrome is my default browser, that's why you're seeing it. Now you can see that there's nothing there because there's no content added yet. So let's start by adding content. So I will go to my editor, and henceforth I no longer have to go to save and save as or save here. I can just press Ctrl S to save. So first thing, I'll add a title. So let me put a page title here. Now my page title will be title. Now be careful the way you write it. A mistake can prompt error. So if I say title, and let's say page title, and I close this P title like this. Now take note of this. If I save this and I refresh here, you will see that here the content here changed. That's because that is what we use to refer to this page title. Are you seeing it? That title, that's where it refers to. So let's add some content. So first I will add an H1. I'll come here and say H1, and I say my first heading. Now, a quick one. Heading is a tag that we use to refer to some certain title or heading in a document, and we have just 6 heading 1 down to heading 6. So I'm using the first heading. I will show you the rest. If I save this, and let me put these pages aside, and let me remove this, put it one side, so it will show separately. And let me put my editor by this other side. So I will code here and I will display here. Now, if I save this on this side, I can come here and refresh. You can see that this changed to my first heading because of the content. You will notice that every other thing here did not appear. Now, remember, we said we use our tags, which is these ones, to determine how the content inside are being displayed. That's the content between the opening tag and the closing tag are being displayed. Let's write another one. Let's say I say paragraph, and I say this is a paragraph. If I close it with the P and I save, if I refresh here, you will see this is a paragraph. Now, if you notice something, the way this appear is different from the way this appear. That is because the tag that is associated with this content determines how this content is being displayed on your browser. You will see that this H1 opening tag, closing tag, or any of these tags that we write here are not displayed on our browser. Rather, our browser uses it to determine how to display the content in between them. So that's how it operates. Look at this title. Because we said it is title, and anything wrapped in the title always appear at the top, and that's why you're seeing it here. And same thing goes here. Now, let's say we interchange it. Let's say this is a P, and this is an H1, and we say this is also H1, while this will serve as a P. If I save this and I refresh, you can see that my first heading is now smaller in size, while this is a paragraph is now bigger in size. So these are some of the things you need to consider, because each tag has what it represents, and we have hundreds of tags in HTML code. So you need to go to the library, there are documentations to check which you want to use for what. And we can come here. I will leave a resource for you where you can check any element and what they partake, what they are about, what those elements are used for. I will leave it in the description below. So let's continue. So let me go back by pressing Ctrl Z. So I will restore back what we have, and I'll change this back to a paragraph, and I change this also to a paragraph, and I change this to an H1. Now this is first page. Now let's see how we can do this with an IDE. Remember, here we're using a plain text editor. So let me bring up my IDE, and let me put it by this side so we can also see it at this side. And on the IDE, I will open the folder. The folder I will be opening will be the folder where I stored my document, which is this online classes. So if I select this folder, automatically the Windows display change of my editor, and all editors behave differently. This is how Visual Studio Code behaves. You might try to do this with other editors and it will not work the same way. So be conscious of how you operate. So if you want to learn more about it, let me know in the comment below, and I will work more. I'll show you more on different editors and Visual Studio Code, the functionalities and features. So here, for me to create a new document file, I can just come to here, click on plus, and let's name it second .html. Remember the extension. Now, if I collapse this in order to see this brighter, now in order for me to do the same thing I did here, all I need to do, our editor, that is the IDE, has some built-in prepared code already that you can just call on instead of you typing it all by yourself. So I can easily come down here and type HT. You can see they give me three options of things that I can use, and if I select this one in particular and I press enter, watch this, you can see that they have a predefined code just by me typing that HTML, and which in our plain text editor we don't have. You have to type everything yourself. But for our IDE, they automatically put on pretext code for us, some code that are already available just by typing HTML and selecting HTML5. In this sense, I can just change the content I want. Let's say I want to say this is second page title, and I can come down here and just say H1. This is another heading, and I can come here and say P. By just saying P and I press enter, you can see both the opening tag and the closing tag is created for you, and I'll say this is another paragraph. So if I save this, and for me to display it, remember we have to locate our file here and we load here for it to display on the browser. In this sense, this browser, but our IDE has an inbuilt loader that will display your content on the web page without you going through the hustle of opening this up and selecting your file to display. So I'll simply just come to file and go to run and just click on start debug. Then here it will ask me to choose which browser I want to use. For me, I'll be using Chrome, so I'll select Chrome. So the very minute I select Chrome, you can see a com page is being popped up to you. Now if you look at this and this, you can see that there is no much different, although because we not refresh this, there's no much different from it. The content here is still the same content here, just that because there are different pages and the content we wrote there are different. That's why you're seeing this. So we'll talk about this and more tags in our next video. Thank you. Have a nice day.